Did you know that some of boxing's greatest legends had their careers and lives tragically cut short, either by illness, accidents, or violence? From Tommy Morrison's shocking HIV diagnosis to Hector Camacho's heartbreaking downfall, here are some boxing legends who died of AIDS. Tommy Morrison. Tommy Morrison was the most thrilling heavyweight boxer of his generation. With his devastating punches and knockout potential, he was an instant favorite with the crowd. He is most remembered for capturing the WBO heavyweight championship and for playing Tommy the Machine Gun in Rocky V with Sylvester Stallone. But whereas his professional life as a boxer was full of triumphs, his private life was a much tougher battle, which he tragically lost. Morrison's path to stardom was like something from a script. Born in 1969, he was a born brawler, having grown up in a family that promoted boxing. When he turned pro, he was already being likened to the greatest heavyweights the sport had ever seen. His knockout ability could not be denied, and in 1993, he took the WBO heavyweight championship after knocking out George Foreman. That win solidified his position as one of the greatest fighters of his time. Morrison was a boxer, but he was also like a Hollywood star. He was handsome and confident and secured a role in Rocky V, in which he acted as a young boxer guided by Rocky Balboa. The assignment made him even more popular, establishing that he was no longer only a boxer, but a pop culture sensation as well. Just when it looked like Morrison was invincible, his life took a tragic turn. In 1996, he tested positive for HIV. The news caused shockwaves in the boxing world. At the time, there was widespread fear and misinformation regarding HIV, and many thought it was a death sentence. Morrison was banned from boxing immediately, and his career was brought to an abrupt end. Initially, he did not believe the diagnosis. He insisted that he had been misdiagnosed and even went so far as to say that HIV did not exist. He denied being ill for years, despite his obvious deterioration in health. This denial of reality worsened his condition, as he did not receive proper medical care. Morrison's post-boxing life was not easy. Without his profession, he became deprived of his primary income. He also had run-ins with the law, such as being arrested for possession of drugs and weapons. His health also deteriorated further, but he continued to claim that he was okay. Despite his talent and success, Morrison's later years were marked by controversy and hardship. His refusal to accept medical help and his troubled personal life took a toll on him. His once powerful physique weakened, and he became a shadow of the fighter he once was. In 2013, Morrison passed away at the age of 44. Although his wife insisted he did not die of AIDS, the majority of reports indicate that his demise resulted from HIV complications. His untimely demise was a poignant reminder of health awareness and prompt treatment. Morrison is still one of the most tragic boxers, one who had the world in his palm but lost all of it because of his demons. His story is inspiring and tragic, demonstrating how much life can shift in a second. Esteban de Jesus. Esteban de Jesus was the greatest lightweight boxer of his era. He possessed lightning-fast hands, awe-inspiring power, and the heart of a warrior that won the hearts of fans everywhere. Born in Puerto Rico, he gained fame through his fighting in the ring, particularly his fabled rivalry with Roberto Duran. Yet, while his career in the ring was one of success, his life outside the ring turned tragic. His drug habit created a cycle of decline, and he actually got HIV from it, and it caused him to die in 1989. Esteban de Jesus had a natural ability for boxing from an early age. He rapidly progressed, becoming one of the best lightweight boxers of the 1970s. In 1972, he stunned the boxing world by defeating the great Roberto Duran in his first ever professional loss. This win made him an overnight sensation. De Jesus wasn't a flash in the pan. He continued to win the WBC lightweight title in 1976, demonstrating that he was one of the best in the world. His fighting style was aggressive and had knockout power, and he was a formidable opponent for anyone who entered the ring with him. People enjoyed watching him fight because he always left everything on the field, and his fights were never dull. One of the most epic rivalries in the history of boxing was between Roberto Duran and Esteban de Jesus. Their bouts were brutal, hard-hitting, and dramatic. Having beaten Duran in their initial bout, de Jesus fought him twice more, but both times he lost. Their last bout in 1978 was for the undisputed lightweight title, and Duran knocked him out. Although de Jesus lost the rivalry 2-1, he was among the few boxers who could match Duran at his best. Though de Jesus was a brawler in the ring, his life outside it was much less stable. He was like most fighters of the era, swept up in an unstable lifestyle. He was involved in drug abuse, which began to take a toll on his career. His promising career in boxing started fading, and he lost many battles toward the later years of his career. Then the most tragic of his career. In 1980, he assassinated a man while arguing in Puerto Rico. The appalling crime resulted in a life sentence in prison. His career as a fighter was over, and his future was dark. De Jesus's health began to fail in prison. He was later found to have contracted HIV, allegedly through intravenous drug use. His illness intensified, and by the late 1980s, he was gravely ill. In a dramatic twist, he converted to faith and turned to religion in his last years. He also reconciled with his former nemesis, Roberto Duran, who came to visit him in prison to show support. It was a poignant moment, two former foes being kind and respectful to one another. By 1989, de Jesus was in critical condition. The Puerto Rican government gave him a compassionate release so that he could spend his final days with his family. Unfortunately, he passed away on May 11, 1989, at the age of only 37. Esteban de Jesus's life is one of tragedy and triumph. He was a phenomenal boxer, one of the few to beat Roberto Duran, but his addiction and criminality stole everything from him. His fight with HIV/AIDS was another cruel irony in a life already so filled with suffering. Darren Morris was a gifted super middleweight boxer with high hopes in the boxing ring. He possessed power, skill, and the prospect of becoming a world champion. Tragically, his life and career ended when he passed away in 2000 from HIV-related meningitis complications. In a strange irony, the World Boxing Organization, WBO, accidentally listed him as an active boxer even when he had long since passed away. His is an inspiring yet tragic story, highlighting how uncertain life can be. Darren Morris was born to box. Like many of his fellow combatants, he aspired to become a future world champion. He worked hard, fought with passion, and soon became recognized as a budding star in the super middleweight category. With each bout, he demonstrated that he possessed the talent to play at the top level. Although he never achieved the status of a household figure like Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali, he was widely admired by boxing enthusiasts and insiders. He was widely thought to have the ability to make it very far, but unfortunately, fate had other ideas. As Morris was gaining fame in boxing, he was silently fighting a lethal disease. He had contracted HIV, a virus that destroys the immune system and causes AIDS if left untreated, at some point in his life. During that time, there was much stigma and ignorance about HIV, particularly in the sports community. Most athletes feared that an announcement of such a diagnosis would mark the end of their careers. It is not known how much Morris was aware of his condition or if he was being treated. By the year 2000, however, his health had deteriorated considerably. He contracted meningitis, a life-threatening infection of the brain and spinal cord, which can prove fatal for individuals with compromised immune systems. Unfortunately, he passed away that year, leaving behind a promising boxing career that was never realized. One of the weirdest aspects of Morris's narrative occurred after he passed away. In a strange anomaly, the WBO kept ranking him as an active fighter, although he had passed away already. His name remained listed in the official rankings for quite some time, as if he continued to compete. This error was subsequently found and rectified, but it turned into a humiliating episode for the organization of boxing. It questioned how effectively the bodies of boxing monitor their fighters and whether they give due consideration to the careers and lives of the fighters they rate. Darren Morris did not become a world champion, but he was a fighter. His life was taken away before he could develop his potential, and his demise was a tragic reminder of how short life can be. Lamar Parks. Lamar Parks was headed for stardom in the world of boxing. With his blinding speed, knockout punch, and desire to win, he was one of the most promising middleweight boxers of the early 1990s. People enjoyed watching him fight because he was energetic, skilled, and exciting. But just as he was at the height of his career, disaster hit. He tested positive for HIV in 1994, and he was compelled to retire from boxing before he could realize his full potential. Naturally gifted and a skilled boxer, Lamar Parks rose to fame in the sport immediately. He had an impressive record in his professional career, with 27 victories out of 28. What set him apart was not only his potential to win, but also how he won, swiftly, accurately, and finishing off with a knockout punch that left his competitors dazed. When the middleweight division was packed with tough opponents, Parks was one true contender for the title. He was on the rise and within reach of a title shot that might have forever altered his life. Experts considered him the potential to become one of the all-time greats of his era. Just when all was going right, Parks's career veered into the ditch. Routine medical tests in 1994 indicated that he had become infected with HIV. The treatments were less sophisticated then than they are now, and there was widespread fear and stigma associated with the illness. For Parks, the news was devastating. He had to retire from boxing straight away. A boxer who had trained his entire life for the ultimate moments in the ring suddenly found himself no longer able to fight. The visions of championship victory and becoming part of the history of the sport were removed instantly. Following his retirement, Lamar Parks became invisible. In contrast to some other fighters who fought sickness in the open, Parks opted for a less public life. Little is known about his post-retirement years, but his diagnosis served as a reminder of the uncertainties of life even for the best of athletes. Parks's case showed how susceptible athletes were, despite their brawn. It also made people realize how important health and safety were in professional boxing. Although Lamar Parks never had a chance to become a world champion, he is one of the largest what-if tales of boxing history. Most feel that if he could have continued to fight, he would have been a world champion. His ability was obvious, and his potential was infinite. Paul Bank. Paul Bank was no ordinary boxer. He was a fighter in every definition of the term. As the ex-WBC Super Bantamweight champion, he battled some of the toughest fighters in the ring, demonstrating strength, resilience, and a never-give-up spirit. But his greatest fight was not against another fighter. It was against an illness that altered his life forever. Bank openly declared in 1995 that he had AIDS, shocking the world of boxing. Although most believed his tale would begin and end there, he continued to fight, demonstrating that outside as well as inside the ring, his spirit was as tough as ever. Paul Bank's boxing career was founded on heart and determination. He was neither the strongest nor the largest fighter, but he possessed an aggressive fighting style that made him a formidable opponent. He was famous for putting pressure on his opponents, pummeling them with punches continuously, and never backing off from a fight. Bank achieved the summit of his career in 1990 when he captured the WBC Super Bantamweight title. It was a battle of endurance, but it proved that he was among the creme de la creme in the sport. Every boxer dreams of winning a world championship, and Banky did it through sheer grit and passion. Though successful in the ring, Bank's life outside the ring was plagued by struggles. He struggled with drug addiction, which resulted in a decline in his career and life. The pinnacle of triumph was constantly followed by the lows of addiction, and he couldn't maintain his position at the top. Then, in 1995, he received life-shattering news. He had AIDS. The disease was stigmatized, and many who suffered from it were ostracized and hopeless. But Bank wasn't that kind of person. Rather than keeping his condition under wraps, he decided to make his diagnosis public, making him one of the first boxers to ever publicly discuss having AIDS. It was expected that Bank would not live long after he had received the diagnosis, but instead, he defied all odds. Bank became an HIV and AIDS awareness campaigner, sharing his experiences with people to raise awareness about the condition. He demonstrated that individuals with AIDS could continue living good lives, shattering the myths that shrouded the disease. Through the years, Bank was active in speaking out regarding his struggle, such as against addiction. He wanted other people to be informed by his faults and of the significance of better choices. His being outspoken about his existence made him inspiring to many, particularly individuals who also encountered the same dilemma. Paul Bank's tale is greater than a tale about boxing. It's a tale about coming back, second chances, and determination to fight regardless of the odds. Although he was once counted out, he didn't give up. Mark LeDuc. Mark LeDuc wasn't only a talented boxer, he was a barrier-breaking man who stood up for what he knew was right. As a Canadian Olympic silver medalist, he demonstrated his ability and commitment in the ring. But his influence extended far beyond the sport of boxing. LeDuc was also famous for his honesty about his personal life, becoming one of the first openly gay boxers in the sport. Even though his 2009 demise wasn't a direct result of AIDS, his activism and openness regarding his health made him an important voice in the debate regarding HIV and AIDS within the sport of boxing. Mark LeDuc was born in Canada, but he had developed a strong interest in boxing right from his childhood. He struggled hard to become famous in the tough amateur boxing world. His biggest opportunity arrived in 1992 when he was competing at the Barcelona Olympics, representing Canada in the light welterweight category. LeDuc battled with accuracy, determination, and amazing ability, reaching the finals. He took home a silver medal, solidifying his status as one of Canada's best boxers. To win an Olympic medal is no easy accomplishment, and it was obvious that LeDuc could go even further in the sport. After the Olympics, LeDuc became professional, seeking to carry his success over. Unfortunately, his career as a pro did not have the same stature as when he was an amateur. He fought on a few occasions before retiring from the sport. Unlike most boxers who find it hard to move away from the ring, LeDuc discovered another use for himself beyond boxing. One of the reasons Mark LeDuc was remarkable was his honesty regarding his private life. In a sport dominated by traditional masculinity, he did something very bold by declaring himself gay. Few athletes, much less boxers, were so open about their sexuality at that time. LeDuc's decision to be who he truly was revolutionary, and it empowered many individuals both within and beyond the world of sports. In addition to that, LeDuc openly addressed health concerns such as HIV and AIDS awareness. By discussing those subjects, he opened the door to dispel stigmas surrounding them, and it became easier for others to have necessary conversations regarding health and identity. In 2009, Mark LeDuc passed away suddenly at the age of 47. He fainted in a sauna, and although his demise wasn't caused by AIDS directly, it was still a tragic loss for everyone who looked up to him. His demise created a loss for the sport of boxing and for the LGBTQ+ sporting community. Mark LeDuc might have been famous for his Olympic victories, but his true legacy was his bravery, inside and outside the ring. He showed that a champion is not only about medal wins, he's about standing up for what is right and motivating others to do the same. Arturo Gatti. Arturo Gatti was the type of fighter who left it all in the ring. Famous for his otherworldly toughness, explosive power, and never-say-die spirit, he was a legend in the sport of boxing. His bouts were nothing less than wars, and his fans adored him for how he fought through pain and adversity. But out of the ring, Gatti suffered problems that were just as merciless. Although he didn't pass away from HIV/AIDS, he struggled with severe medical problems, including a compromised immune system. His unexplained demise in 2009 is one of the largest controversies in the history of boxing. Born in Canada but of Italian heritage, Arturo Gatti was born to be great in the sport of boxing. He wasn't merely another boxer, he was a fighter. Famed for his fighting style and capability to withstand punishment, Gatti grew notorious for heroic wars within the ring. His 3-fight series against Mickey Ward is regarded as one of the greatest rivalries ever in the ring. The two boxers fought toe-to-toe, providing unforgettable seconds of bravery, strength, and heart. Gatti won world championships in 2 different weight classes, showing that he wasn't all about brawling. He also possessed some serious boxing skills. His fights were must-see action because regardless of how badly he was injured, he would somehow manage to continue fighting. While Gatti was famous for his ruggedness inside the ring, his body took a severe pounding throughout his career. Decades of vicious fights left him battling an assortment of health problems, such as head injuries, physical fatigue, and a compromised immune system. Although there were no reports of him being HIV/AIDS positive, some experts and fans observed that his body appeared to be letting him down towards the latter part of his career. His health was declining, and many people speculated that something else was amiss behind the scenes. Arturo Gatti was discovered lifeless in a hotel room in Brazil in 2009, where he and his wife were on vacation. He was initially declared to have committed suicide, but most people, both his family and friends, did not believe it. Gatti had a reputation for being a fighter, and no one suspected that he would commit suicide. Later, investigators proposed by investigators that he could have been assassinated. His wife was arrested at first, but was released afterward because there was no evidence. The case is still one of the most controversial enigmas in the history of boxing. Some people assume that he was assassinated, but others believe his years of ill health and blows to the head contributed to his untimely passing. Arturo Gatti's demise left a void in the boxing world. He was a fighter who gave everything he had, night after night. Even in his final years, he remained a beloved figure among fans and fellow boxers. Hector Macho Camacho, was perhaps the most entertaining and flashy boxer in the ring. Famous for his speedy fists, dazzling looks, and unmatched swagger, he was a fan favorite. Camacho wasn't all style and no substance. His boxing credentials included several world championships across various weight divisions. But life beyond the ring wasn't quite as glamorous. His battles with drug addiction resulted in medical issues, and in 2012, his life was ended when he was shot and assassinated. Puerto Rican, born and raised in New York, Camacho didn't have an easy childhood. He discovered boxing as a teenager, and soon everyone knew he was special. With lightning-quick reflexes and tremendous speed, he became known in the 1980s. Camacho won world titles in the super featherweight, lightweight, and junior welterweight divisions to become a 3-division world champion. He beat some of the greatest fighters in his era, including legends such as Sugar Ray Leonard, sending him into retirement. His defense and rapid combinations made him an opponent's nightmare, and his showmanship transformed him into a superstar. While Camacho excelled in the ring, his personal life was a mess. He was a larger-than-life personality with a love for the spotlight. But he had issues with alcohol and drug use. His addiction issues resulted in numerous legal problems and caused problems for his health throughout the years. Most thought that if Camacho had been more disciplined, he would have had an even better career. Despite his issues, fans continued to adore him, and his name was still one of the most recognizable in boxing. In November of 2012, Camacho was riding in a parked car in Puerto Rico when he was shot several times. The assault rendered him brain dead, and after being on life support for several days, his family reluctantly decided to allow him to pass away. Camacho was just 50 years old. The news of his passing came as a shock to the world of boxing. Numerous fighters past and present honored Camacho, not only for his ring skills, but also for his charismatic energy. Even in his failures, Camacho is still one of the most memorable personalities in boxing. His gaudy ring attire, his brashness, and his amazing quickness made him a must-see pugilist. Despite the ups and downs in his life, his contribution to boxing cannot be denied. His fights are still replayed by fans, and his name is still mentioned when discussing the greatest showman in the sport. Camacho's untimely demise was tragic, but his contribution to boxing will never be forgotten. Salvador Sanchez. Salvador Sanchez was a boxing talent whose life ended much too soon. The Mexican boxer became a world champion at the tender age of 21 and was poised for all-time greatness. His quickness, brains, and remarkable staying power made him the most powerful featherweight in his era. Unfortunately, at the age of 23, his life was brutally cut short in an automobile accident. Although he did not die of AIDS, his untimely demise puts him alongside boxing greats who departed too early. Born in 1959 in Santiago Tianguistenco, Mexico, Sanchez began boxing early in life. He became a pro at age 16 and soon proved to the world that he was something remarkable. Unlike most young boxers, he was not all about brute force. He was intelligent in the ring. His skill in reading his opponents, avoiding punches, and hitting with precision made him almost unbeatable. By 21, Sanchez had taken the WBC featherweight title, outpointing Danny Lopez in a masterful performance. He successfully defended his belt several times, beating the best of the best, including Juan Laporte, Patrick Ford, and even legend Wilfredo Gomez. His bout against Gomez was one of his highlights. Gomez was undefeated and favored to win, but Sanchez stunned the world with a vicious knockout win. Sanchez possessed a special style that blended speed, stamina, and brains. He never tired out, even after prolonged battles. While most boxers ran out of gas during the later rounds, Sanchez just gained steam. His ability to remain calm under duress and counterpunch with precision made him the most feared competitor in the ring. Most people feel that if he had lived longer, he would have become one of the all-time great pound-for-pound fighters. He was already a champion at 23 years old, and his career was still on the upswing. On August 12, 1982, Sanchez was driving his Porsche on a Mexican highway when he lost control of the vehicle and crashed. The crash was fatal, and the boxing community was shocked. He was only 23 years old. At an age when most boxers are still establishing their careers, he had already become a legend. His sudden demise left many wondering what could have been. Would he have moved up in weight and won more championships? Would he have dominated boxing for another decade? Unfortunately, the world never got to find out. Although his career was brief, Salvador Sanchez is remembered as one of the all-time great featherweight boxers. His name is still legendary in Mexico, and young fighters aspire to be like him. His untimely demise contributes to his legend, ranking him as one of boxing's all-time what-if stories. Had he survived, there's little doubt he would have achieved even greater heights. But even in only 23 years, he made a contribution to boxing that will forever remain.